first of all, are you noticing significant shortages at the moment?
In food supply,
Yes.
no. I mean, the only real...
Take the next right onto Causeway, A312.
At the moment, for the obvious reasons that we've talked about, but there's not necessarily anything in particular where I'm worried about a shortage of supply that will impact our ability.
Continue on A312 for 1 mile.
Is another issue.
Well, I was going to say that's good news, but let's turn to cost, because everybody is noticing costs shooting up all around the shop. Are there again particular food areas that you are most concerned about when it comes to cost? Things that people are going to see on your supermarket shelves and a bit think, yikes, help.
Yes. Well, obviously, we're doing everything we can. We've committed to freezing all of our £1 frozen lines, but to the end of the year, excuse the pun. But to give you an example on that, the margin, we've gone from a 25% profit margin on those to basically zero. So that's one example of where we as a retailer are having to absorb costs so that we can support our customers. But yeah, there is a whole different range of things, everything from wheat, because 30% of global wheat supply comes from Russia and Ukraine. That doesn't just affect bread prices. You'll have seen the price of bread going up at shelf. It also affects the price of animal feed, which Henry obviously outlined as a major input factor in a lot of production.
Are you seeing any change at all so far in what people are buying in their habits?
Well, funnily enough, they are increasingly turning to frozen food. I mean, that trend started in the pandemic. You talked about food waste. It's a great way of halving your food waste. People often talk about freezing leftovers, but actually just buying frozen in the first place is a good way to do it. It's obviously cheaper. So we're seeing an uptick in sales of frozen. But yeah, we are, of course, seeing that customers are hard pressed. I'm hearing stories of some getting to the till and asking the cashier to tell them when it gets to 40 quid, and they'll stop putting things on the conveyor belt. And also we do look at units per basket, which is a very important measure of how we're doing. And we can see that customers are managing inflation through ultimately putting less items in their baskets.
And are there any particular products which may be sort of flying under the radar in terms of the public consciousness, but which you think are going to cause real problems?
I mean, it's coming at us from every angle, and there are staples like bread, milk and eggs which are going up significantly. Like I said, we're doing everything we can to maintain our best value in the market.
In a quarter of a mile of Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit onto the Parkway A312.
Yes, yeah, and obviously that's due to the different kind of input cost factors that are involved in creating those things. I mean, if you take something as simple as milk, you're looking at fertilizer on the fields, you're looking at labour on the farms, you're looking at fuel price to transport it to the processing plants, to bottle it, and then transfer it daily to our stores. So all of those are the kind of underlying reasons why prices are going up in some instances. I should add, though, that it's down to government to do what they can, but also down to business. We announced yesterday support for the over 60s, giving them a 10% discount every Tuesday.
Yeah, I noticed that, Richard. But why particularly the over 60s, given that there's an awful lot of younger people who are really struggling with their budgets?
Yeah, there is, and actually, that's just one of a whole suite of things that we're doing. We have also supported NHS workers, emergency services workers. We do student discounts. So actually, we have a whole range of suite of kind of tactical offers and access for different demographics and age groups.
You mentioned the government there. It's a very, very competitive area, supermarket retailing. Do you actually want the government to do anything at all, or is this...
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway.
I mean,
continue on the Parkway for 1 mile.
Everyone's going to say no to government help.
Previously, I think what we're dealing with here, it's important to take a step back and to acknowledge that a lot of these factors and a lot of the cause or problems of them are global in nature, whether that's the war in Ukraine or global supply issues or economies readjusting from COVID. The government has announced, I think, £22 billion in totality of different packages, and of course that's fantastic. Obviously, I'd like to see them do more, and the Chancellor Minister has said that he's committed to do more, particularly energy bills. I mean, we talk about the impacts on consumers quite rightly. Our customers, some of them might only have 25 quid a week spend on food, so higher energy prices really does impact them. And he said he will look again at the energy price cap in October. What I'd really like is an energy price cap for business. I don't think they'll get one, but of course that we are subject to the vagaries of the wholesale markets, and of course as a frozen food retailer, bricks and mortar retailer, our electricity costs are increasing.
Very, very high. Richard Walker, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Henry, finally, you've got all sorts of recommendations in your report. Would you like to see some kind of emergency budget, or the Chancellor to move in and help people before we get to the autumn?
As I said, it is getting very, very difficult for people out there. And I think that you have two options. You have an option of in some way subsidising food for the poorest people in society, or increasing what you pay them. And I think it'll be difficult not to make some responsible for it.
Sure you are, Henry Dimbleby. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Coming up, a damning report into children's social care in England, which says the system needs a radical reset. You're listening to Andrew Marr on LBC and Amelia Cox as the news headlines.
Questions are being asked after pictures emerged of Boris Johnson raising a glass at a leaving party during the second lockdown. The photos are said to be from an event on the 13th of November 2020, the date the Metropolitan Police did investigate. A further 36 cases of monkeypox have been identified in England, bringing the total to 56. More than 57 have been recorded in the UK, with the first person in Scotland being diagnosed. And a former MP has been jailed for sexually assaulting a teenager in 2008. Imran Ahmed Khan has been sentenced to 18 months for groping the 15-year-old. LBC weather: showers throughout the night in England, Wales and eastern Scotland. Drier for western Scotland and Northern Ireland, a low of 5 degrees.
This is LBC.
Have you lost £3,000 or more in a scam or fraud? If you've been unable to recover your money, then contact us for a no-obligation chat, and we could help you get your money
In 200 yards, at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the second exit onto the M4 slip road to Heathrow Airport, M25.
Fraud and scam claims. Please don't suffer alone. Tell CEL. We listen, we care, we win.
My name is Chris Hadfield. I'm an astronaut. I've been lucky enough to go around the world 2,600 times. Technology enables us to do things that we just can't naturally do. And when you can fold the impossible into the reality of normal life right now, that's what progress is.
When technology enables progress, ESET is here to protect it. ESET Digital Security. Progress protected.
Right now at B&Q, get 25% off garden furniture, barbecues and outdoor play. That's 25% off, making the most of summer. So bring on the sunshine. Shop in-store at DIY.com or on the B&Q app. You can do it. Excludes products sold and shipped by verified sellers online, subject to availability in 6th of June.
Let's take a moment for that last Big Mac mouthful. You wish you could have that first bite feeling all over again. Well, luckily for you, the Grand Big Mac and the Grand Big Mac Bacon are back at McDonald's, so you can spend longer with the taste you love. Serve from 11 a.m. Available until the 7th of June. Participating restaurants only, subject to availability.
This is LBC. Tonight.
Exit the roundabout onto the slip road. In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
The social care system needs a radical reset to stop a cycle of escalating problems. The leader of a review into the sector has warned today. I'm joined by the Shadow Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, to discuss that and other areas of the education brief. But before I do any of that, I must ask, of course, about the photograph tonight. Is it a Labour Party interview that this shows the Prime Minister at a party when he said he wasn't at a party? So therefore he needs to tell the House of Commons week whether it was lying.
Yes, it's absolutely shocking when he told me actually you see photographs that show he was there. Well, it just shows time and again that the Prime Minister has
Continue on M4 for 3 miles.
it would be good if he could just do a decent thing and go.
Is there any explanation that you can find that's provided the methodist looked at this, presumably looked at photographs like this, and the conclusion that it wasn't community okay, and that he should not?
We can expect the operational decision making is that when the Prime Minister has a right, of course,
of death are removed in time. And in both cases, that seems to come down to the need for more social workers with longer longer hours and with better resources than we have at the moment. Is it the Labour Party's position that the problems in social care were caused by Conservative austerity?
I think funding can't be separated out from this discussion. Do I think this all comes down to funding? No, I don't. But just to be clear, I think this is a really important report. I welcome what's being set out, particularly the direction that's being set in terms of what we...
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
But in terms of the key thrust of what is set out around the need to support children and families at the earliest possible opportunity, the need to provide that extra early help so the problems don't escalate. What I do hear, unfortunately, and what we've seen with...
Keep right to stay on M4.
Visit nurseries, visit schools, and I speak to parents and staff. Is that there is an absence now of that support.
Continue on M4 for 2 miles.
We've had great intervention around, particularly in the early days of children's lives, it just isn't there in any partners before, and I don't think we can take that out of the discussion. The last 12 years we've seen over 1,000 children's centres close, we've seen more and more children going into care. We have to find a way of breaking this pattern, and the government will have our support in bringing forward the change that's necessary if they are willing to act. But I didn't get a sense today from the government around real urgency on this.
We'll find out, because the report calls, for instance, for a new highly trained cadre of child protection specialists tasked with the responsibility for making decisive and focused decisions on when to take kids out of particular environments. As Labour, would you implement that?
I think that sounds like a sensible recommendation. I'd want to look at all of the recommendations. There are a big number. But I think the key point that I would take away from the report is that we need to provide extra support around families to allow families to stay together where that's possible. The report, for example, talks a lot about the importance of kinship care. So when things do go wrong, it's often better to
aunt or a cousin or whatever.
Yeah. We need to see change, of course, where that's not possible. Around some of the unregulated settings that we have for older children who can remain with their families. But I think if we get that early start right for children, it does go a long way. That's what Labour did from government. That's what we prioritised. And the evidence now is even clearer than it was then. What is effective in getting better outcomes for children?
Bridget, you say right, there's a lot of recommendations, and there surely are. The whole thing is meant to be costing about £2.6 billion over 5 years. Will Labour commit to it?
We'll back the government in implementing its report and its recommendations. I think what the
Just honestly, something slightly different, which is, would you commit to 2.6 billion yourselves as the Labour Party, whatever?
we would like them to bring forward to achieve this? I think what the report is also clear about is that because the current system that we've got around families is not sustainable, we're spending more and more, but actually we're not addressing some of the root causes yet. So what
To do that, surely you need more social workers intervening earlier and better training and all of that.
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
We did it from government. We prioritised investment in families and children. We will do it again. I'm not going to set out every detail for every single maximum investment, but I can assure you...
Keep right to stay on M4.
This report suggests closing down offenders institutions.
In 2 miles, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
To give their own children breakfast. Is that a good use of public money?
I think it has wider social benefits for children that need it most, but I also think it brings wider benefits to the economy. I have a lot of working parents who can't get to work or can't take extra hours because there isn't childcare that's available there for them. I think there are some services that are best to look for all children, no matter what the family income is. And I think when it comes to breakfast clubs, the evidence around the impact it has on those disadvantaged children, but also the wider benefits to the economy, allowing parents not to have to wait till 9 o'clock in order to get back to work. I hear time from parents that desperate for that, not least given the pressures that seem around the cost of living. It would make a big difference to parents.
Let me talk about education-related issues. Keir Starmer stood on the platform about scrapping university tuition fees. Presumably that remains Labour's position to scrap all university tuition.
We don't want to put fees. The current model is broken. The government set out various changes around that, but it isn't going to fix the problem instantly.
This will cost billions and billions. Are you again sure this is a good use of public money?
Everything that is a economic selection of a £21 test relevant on that. That's absolutely the approach that we're taking. Rachel Reeves has been clear about that, so that is definitely how we do things.
Would you get rid of GCSEs?
I wouldn't want to make one change like that in isolation from the rest of the system. I do think we should look at the curriculum, which I think has been too narrow. I don't think we can miss out on opportunities around sport, music and drama. I think that is the starting point.
So you reverse on the curriculum change reported by the Conservative?
I think it's become too narrow. I don't think it's what parents want. All children, no matter what their family background, should have the opportunity to do music, sport, drama and other activities. That's partly what our children's recovery plan is about. We know how much children lost out during the pandemic, and of course, parents with needs can often pay for that, other parents can't, and I think that should be right available to all children.
In a quarter of a mile, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
Around assessment.
Finally, we have a very divided society, and a lot of that is down to a two-tier private and public education system. Would you do anything at all?
Exit at junction 6.
Provide so many of your colleagues in the House of Commons.
We would end the tax exemptions that private schools enjoy.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the 3rd exit onto Tuns Lane, A355.
Bridget Phillips, really interesting talk with you. Thank you so much for coming in. Right then, coming up with those new pictures of Partygate circulating, what's going to be going on in Downing Street right at the moment? How will they be trying to manage the situation over Partygate? Well, I'll be asking a man who knows what it's like to advise a Prime Minister and try to spin a journalist or two, Alistair Campbell. The time now is 6:44.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
As the cost of living crisis bites harder, the government is accused of letting down the poor. But is it just the poor? What about the squeezed middle?
Ian Dale on LBC.
Heard about Magpie, the vegan pie truck that needed a bit of help from GoDaddy? One day the owners are like, this business hasn't reached its potential. And the other one goes, we need a bigger piece of the pie. And then it hits us. We need GoDaddy. Look, we can get a domain name and create an online store so we can sell to more customers. Now they've gone from serving a couple
Exit the roundabout onto Tuns Lane.
And now everyone's like, vegan pies are the new thing round here. Wait, no me. For the helping tools you need to grow online, GoDaddy.
In a quarter of a mile, slight left towards Sippenham Lane.
Whether you're buying online or through our trusted dealers, feel good your way with Haycar. T&Cs apply.
Everyone can make little changes to waste less. And at McDonald's, we're no different.
Like reusing our old cooking oil to make biodiesel.
Slight left towards Sippenham Lane.
I use McCafe card at McDonald's.
To make a birthday card for me. Thanks, Dad.
It's the start of a plan to recycle and reuse even more. Because we know when you change a little, you change a lot. Recycling units available in UK restaurants. Search National Cup Recycling Scheme. Includes cards and other products.
This is LBC Tonight with Andrew Marr.
It's 6:46 now. I'm sure you've seen those graphic and fairly repulsive pictures of pustules and the rest of it. Monkeypox is making a lot of news headlines, and today another 36 cases have been detected in the UK. So how worried?
Continue for 1.5 miles.
Is consultant virologist based at the University of Cambridge and the presenter of the Naked Scientist podcast. But he's fully dressed today, I'm glad to say. Can I start by asking you, Dr. Smith, monkeypox itself, it's been around for a very, very long time, but we were told again and again it doesn't spread very fast, it's not that contagious, and it's by and large not fatal. Are there aspects about this, however, that we should be really thinking about, really worried about?
Well, the reason that people have given that advice in the past is that we've known about this for 5-6 decades or so, and it's endemic to parts of Africa, Central Africa and West Africa, and has been for a really long time. It exists in small rodents, rats, mice, that kind of thing. Now, if it were that transmissible, then we would expect to see lots and lots and lots of cases in those endemic areas. So it's only infrequently that it jumps into people, and when it does, it can occasionally cause large numbers of cases, but it rarely does so. So unless something has fundamentally changed about the virus, which we doubt, because this sort of virus doesn't evolve very quickly, then it probably more likely reflects something about us and our behaviour that's facilitating its sudden spread and possibly the outbreaks that we're seeing.
Was there some kind of super spreader event that started this off, do you think?
Well, it's possible, and when public health doctors first see a blip on the radar like this, the first thing they do is to go and quiz the people who they've identified as cases and try to look for links, join the dots as it were, to try to get a picture of where have you been, what have you been doing, who have you been doing it with, in order to try to establish what the chain of transmission is, what the grounds are that really spawned this. And
do we have any links? I was going to ask.
Yeah, one group has surfaced as fairly heavily represented in the cases. There was one traveller that would fit with having brought it into the country, but that